Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation
or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked
and sometimes what didn't.
You will also hear very personal experiences
and insights that would trigger your thoughts
and inspire you to do even greater things.
Before we jump into today's conversation, a special thanks to PM Power Consulting for encouraging and supporting this show right from the start. With over 1,000 person-years of collective experience, PM Power has helped many organizations, teams, and individuals chart out their own journeys of excellence and make progress. Thank you, PM Power. Now, let's move to today's episode. Today, I am in conversation with Govindarajan, more popularly known as Govi, who is the co-founder and executive chairman of Perfios Software. He shares his comprehensive journey from the early days of his career to building successful startups. Govi dives deep into his academic background, the industry experience he's had, the various startups he co-founded, including Aztec Soft and Perfios. He emphasizes the importance of technology-focused innovation, building a product company out of India for the global market, and navigating the challenges of operating in a regulated industry. Govi also shares his insights on the value of teamwork, culture, and maintaining a larger purpose beyond just making money. Throughout the conversation, he provides valuable lessons for aspiring entrepreneurs on topics like raising funds, managing teams, and scaling business globally. Listen on. Hi, Govi. Welcome to the Software People Stories.
Thank you. Good morning. Yeah.
This is again one of those conversations that has been pending for a long time. I mean, and then I'm happy that finally now we could make it. So as we normally do, we start with a self-introduction. You can talk about your origin story, how you got interested in software, and what has been your career trajectory, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep it short. My name is Govi. I am the co-founder and executive chairman of a company called Perfios Software. It's a SaaS company servicing the BFSI sector, both in India and about 18 countries, largely in Southeast Asia, Middle East, and North Africa. I did my undergraduation here at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. And after that, moved to University of Massachusetts, Amherst for my master's in computer science. And after that, worked in Digital Equipment Corporation, a company that does not exist, in some of the hardcore database systems. So my background is hardcore systems. I still pretend to be a technologist. And so worked in tech and then in Almaden Research Lab again on databases. And then came back to India. And the reason it was largely software was that was the only option that was available at that time. I mean, if you leave the core mechanical, electrical, electronics, this was the only option that was available. And so it was a natural, I gravitated towards that and were fortunate to work in some of the largest and best organizations at that time. Came back to India in early 90s, did a startup and did not go anywhere, not surprising, because I don't come from a business background. My father was a school teacher. And so tried, did not go anywhere. Then did a second startup called Aztec Soft. That was reasonably successful. Again, being a technology guy, I tried building a product, what is today called as an app server, the likes of WebLogic, WebSphere. And this was before the term was coined. The closest to app server at that time was more of this TP monitor. You may relate to that. So we were trying to build something leveraging the earliest version of Java and built it in mid-90s. But found it very difficult to market an enterprise class product sitting out of India with no funding. It was the worst possible combination. So gave it up. Gave it up in the sense we said it's tough to do this. So we will do the next best thing, which is like instead of building product and trying to sell it, let's build product for other companies that are software product companies. What is today called as outsourced product development, OPD. We were pioneers there, this company, Aztec, and that was successful. So we were building products for practically every large and small companies in the world sitting out of Bangalore. And it was successful. We took it public, listed as in the local stock market. Ran it as a public company from 2000 to 2008, and then sold it to MindTree, another public company. And after that, started this company, Perfios. And the goal again was, there was always a regret. While Aztec was reasonably successful, there was a regret that we could not build a product company sitting out of India. And so we said this time, because there was financial security after reasonable success of Aztec, we said it has to be a product company and we won't dilute that focus anymore. So the one-line description I still have for the company Perfios is, this will be a technology-driven category-creating product company in chosen domains and chosen geographies. This is how we started the company, and Perfios is work in progress, although we have been doing reasonably well so far.
Yeah, wonderful. You compressed a lot of things here.
Okay.
Right from being a startup to a few other aspects. Now, we'll probably try to unpack them little by little.
Sure.
See, the first thing was when you mentioned that you wanted a startup and the first one was not really as successful, and then you still persisted. So what kept you coming back to the startup kind of a model?
Okay. So one, to be frank, one reason was, if you can relate to that, the early 90s, the opportunities were kind of limited in India. And I had decided to stay put in India, not go back to US. So opportunities were limited, and I felt the best thing is create your own space instead of working for a large company and be driven by what they wanted to do, which at that time was largely doing some services work for other companies in the world. Right. So I was not too, at least, keen on continuing in that mode, and said the best way then is create our own space, create a startup, and do interesting stuff. Because as I said, my background is technology. I wanted to do some hardcore technical work. And I felt at that time the scope was not available with some of the larger companies out there in India. So the next best thing was create our own space. And because the insurance I had was, the worst case, if it doesn't work, I'll go back to US and continue to do what I was doing. So that was the thing. So that was the primary objective. Can I do cutting edge work sitting out of India? The reason of sitting out of India was largely because my family was here, and I felt I'll be more comfortable here than sitting in US. Nothing right or wrong here, but that was a decision why I decided to come back and said, sitting in India, can I still continue to do quality work, cutting edge work? And I felt startup was one of the ways by which I can do that. So financial motive was absolutely not the consideration at all to do a startup at that time. It was more like, can I do some good quality work?
Wonderful. So before we get to the Perfios story, on the Aztec story, having built something that was successful, where you could see traction and all that, how did, say, going public, change it?
Okay. Yeah, going public was always a difficult thing. We know the upsides. It gives you credibility, all of that stuff. See, money was not a critical requirement for us because we were profitable. But it was more of building the credibility so that when we go to our potential prospects, customers, they will treat us better. That was one of the reasons. But unfortunately, what happened was as soon as we went public, there was a dot-com bust globally. And large set of our customer base was this dot-com companies who raised enormous amount of money, and we were building the products for them sitting out of India. And so suddenly we found ourselves in a situation where a significant part of our customer base has eroded. And the revenue had a significant drop, and we were a public company. It was the worst of the combination. So if you're a private company itself, that's a problem to manage the cash flow, and how do you manage a sudden drop of revenue. But on top of it, we were also a public company. So quarter on quarter pressure, managing the analyst. At some point in time, actually, my cash position was higher than my listed value, market cap. It was that kind of a situation. And so it was very, very difficult for about 18 months to 24 months of navigating this and getting out of this mess, being a public company. If I had been a private company, a lot of it will be within my boardroom.
Yeah.
Whereas today it was like an emperor that was naked, right? Everyone knew what was going on and how bad the situation was. But fortunately, I mean, we were again a technology-focused company. We felt that things will turn around and we will definitely come back because we felt very confident about our background and capabilities and all that. So after a while, a couple of years, we kind of bounced back and started doing quite well. We did some acquisitions, grew rapidly. All of that happened, but it was a tough period.
Okay, so that brings another question, which is one is when you said you did acquisitions, being on one side as the acquirer, and then when you had to sell it to MindTree, something that you grew, giving it off to somebody else. How did?
Okay. Say acquisition. Say I even today I feel that obviously there are smarter people than us in the world. So while we may want as an engineer always there is this not invented here syndrome. I can do things better than others. That kind of a thing is there. But one has to be realistic also, especially when you're running a business. There are smarter folks out there and they may be building things that you have not thought about or they have built it earlier than what you could have done. So it's better to kind of do a strategic partnership if it is possible, if there is a meeting of minds and the chemistry matches and all that stuff. So the acquisition, I always felt inorganic is definitely a good way of growth. Especially if you have a market and go to market, acceleration is important. It's better to look at inorganic, especially if you can afford it. And meeting of minds are there. So we were always open to acquisition. Even in Aztec, we did that acquisition that did very well for us and for the founders of that company also. And then it became big. And it reached a stage where, as I said, I continued to be or pretend to be a technologist. And it was becoming more of an HR role for me. It was becoming like a 3,500 people kind of company with all the challenges. Obviously, there are huge challenges in running a services company that is global and multiple customers to deal with. And being a public company, so quarter on quarter growth, profitability, all that. That challenge was there. But more importantly, internally, it was not a technology challenge for me anymore. I was becoming more of a HRhead, trying to kind of make peace with different departments, different groups, different customers, all of that stuff. And I was not enjoying it. And I wanted to continue to be focused on technology. So at that point, the board felt that since there was no one else to kind of drive the company to the next level, it's better to just sell the company to like-minded people. And MindTree, I knew all the founders very well. So we felt the chemistry matched and it's better to just sell Aztec to MindTree. It was a public company by that time, so it was an easy transaction.
But what about that feeling of this is a baby that I kind of nurtured, now handing it over to somebody else?
Fortunately, that emotional thing was not there because the reason was, again, we wanted to build a company that was technology oriented, which we felt to a large extent we achieved. Yes, we could not build a product company per se, but we created this equivalent of OPD space. And we kind of demonstrated it is possible to build products sitting out of India, maybe for other product companies. So we demonstrated that. We went public. And then I always felt, me and my co-founder, even in the current company, that you have to create wealth, share wealth. I mean, I salute Mr. Murthy and Nandan and others in Infosys who demonstrated this also. So we always followed that in our one small way. And in Aztec also, we had a very, very liberal ESOP policy. And employees really saw the liquidity and upsides for them. And so there was that huge satisfaction that we started out with something, we made changes to people's life. We created this whole OPD space and we kind of established it's possible to build good quality products sitting out of India. So with all of that, I don't think there was any emotional baggage that I had at that point in time to let it go. Absolutely not.
Yeah, one is about the organization. The second is about the customers, the relationships that you had built. Now say that on tomorrow, okay, somebody else will take care of you.
See, fortunately, all those customers continue to be good friends. So it's because I did not leave it in the middle or whatever logical point we transition. So again, to that extent also, it's not like suddenly they were not in my contacts list or whatever it is. So I continue to interact with them. They continue to interact with me. In fact, it's a good thing because whatever I'm going to do, I mean, at that time, whatever I was planning to do, I knew that they could be my initial set of POC customers.
Okay. Nice. You also used the term we when you talked about Perfios.
Okay.
So was the team that at Aztec kind of continue to Perfios, or how was that?
Okay. So my co-founder in Perfios is a guy called Debashish Chakrabarti, DCHAC. So I'm fortunate I've been working with them for last 35 years in multiple ventures. In Aztec, he was an early member. He was my key architect of the product that we were trying to build. Although he left Aztec much before I left. And he was trying to do something of his own. So when we sold to MindTree and then I left and I was planning to do something of my own, that's when I pinged DCHAC and he said, let's do something together. So that way, that we refers to me and him. So we started, just two of us started the company, built it. And after that, some of the key people in the early members of the team came from Aztec. Again, because of the trust factor and what they've seen working.
Yeah. Okay. So this one, nowadays, no conversation is without AI, right? Now, with AI, people talk about, one-person unicorn companies. So from your experience and perspective, how important is it to have a team rather than saying that I'll be a solo cowboy?
I think it is absolutely team effort. If anyone says that I'm a hero, I can build a company, I think they're lying. And it is definitely not sustainable. And bulk of, say when you're a startup, when you're doing POCs, when you're wanting to demonstrate something fancy widget, yes, it is possible to do with a heroic effort. Overnight, you can sit, code, get some things done, all of that stuff. But anything, I mean, you know it better than anyone. Anything that is scalable, that has this kind of large enterprise class product, it is not possible for one person to build it. It has to be a team effort and it has to be sustainable. It's not like I build it and throw it over the wall and I move on. It is not that case because anything that is going to be used by a large enterprise has to have a 5-year, 10-year lifetime. Yes, you will do versions and all that, but the architecture, all the stuff that you talk about has to be sustainable, right? And that is not possible with one person, however strong that person is. So it has to be a team effort.
So when you talk about this team effort, in your case, you said that you already had a long professional relationship and that's how the team also came together for trust. But for entrepreneurs who are building something new, maybe with a very small team, and suddenly they find that they need to expand. So what has been your experience in building a team that stays cohesive and grows together?
Okay. So I think the biggest thing is the primary objective. See, if I start a company with the objective saying I'll make some millions and then retire and all that stuff, I don't think that is something that is sustainable. No team will trust you. And as both of us know that there is so much of struggle. It's not like it's going to be only a positive slope always. You will have to go through this roller coaster ride when you know that things are not going well, all of that stuff. And the only way the team and the initial members will stay with you is if you have a larger purpose, larger objective. See, in our case, as I said, the objective was we will demonstrate it is possible to build good quality products sitting out of India. Right. That was the biggest objective. And the side objective there was, since we were looking at the BFSI space, we said people were talking about financial inclusion and all. We said we will build products that will make a difference to people's life. I mean, I'm not going to eliminate poverty or solve world hunger. That's not the thing. But in whatever small way I can, if I can make the financial services delivered far better than what it is, right? That was a goal. And today, with a lot of satisfaction, I can say in the last 12, 15 years, Perfios has completely changed the way financial services are delivered in this country and for good. And each one of my team members can walk into any bank and say, whatever I did is part of this large bank, whether it's an SBI, ICICI, HDFC, and I am making a difference in the way lending happens in this country in a positive way. So those kind of higher objectives is what keeps the team together. Of course, in addition to the professional satisfaction, as I said, we believe in create well, share well. If the company is going to grow and do well, then each one of the team members also has to see the upside. And fortunately, all of them have seen that upside in this journey in Perfios. So combining this professional satisfaction of making a difference and second, the monetary upside through that is what keeps the team together.
And for that, I think the choice of the segment you operate in and then what is the white space that you're trying to fill is very important. So while you mentioned you chose BFSI, what was the trigger or a pull towards that sector?
Sure. So as I said, we wanted to be a product company leveraging technology because that is what we come from, that background. And I said it has to be in chosen domains and chosen geographies. The reason is it would have been easiest for me and DCHAC to have been a horizontal technology player. Because that is where we come from, it would have been easy. We don't have any great domain background. In fact, in my internal induction program meetings, I tell my employees, before starting Perfios, the only financial services experience I had was opening up a couple of savings bank accounts, not more than that, right? But we felt it is important to choose a domain because that is the only way to have stickiness with the customer. Because if a horizontal, then very likely I will see a better horizontal technology company within a year because there are smarter people than me, right? Whereas if I choose a particular domain, build business problem solutions for the customer, integrate with whatever they have, then the stickiness is higher and I am able to solve a business problem. So we said it has to be in a domain. And the first domain we chose was personal finance. The reason was, fortunately, because of the Aztec success, we had some spare money to manage. And there were no products that were available even globally, even today. And we said, let's go and build a platform that will have the ability to suck any kind of data, structured, unstructured, in this case, personal finance. So whether it is from your credit card, banking, loan, whatever it is, and then give you all the way from doing your capital gains, cash flow analysis, ITR statements, and all of that stuff. Let it do the complete end-to-end solution. That is how we started. In fact, the name of my company, Perfios, is Personal Finance One Stop. That's how we started. As a personal finance is the first domain, built this. And building was the easiest. Being technology background person, we said, let's build it. 6 months, we had this working product. But taking it to the market and then realizing this was a B2C product offered in a freemium model. That's when we realized it's not easy to extract money from people for anything on the internet. Everyone wanted it to be free. That's when we realized there is this famous saying in freemium model. If you want to make millions in freemium model, you have to spend billions. And we were neither capable of or wanted to go down that path. So it was a struggle doing it as a B2C model building. We felt, I mean, like any entrepreneur, we felt this was a fantastic product and a solution. Doing this personal finance aggregation. Even today, there is no comparable product globally for this. But the truth was like it was difficult to monetize. I could have run it like a lifestyle business, but the goal was to build a large scale, big product company out of India rather than a lifestyle business. So I did multiple iterations working with chartered accountants, independent financial advisors. Everywhere it was clear it will be a lifestyle product. So that's when we decided we have to kind of pivot, leverage the same technology platform, but in addition to personal finance, let's look at lending. That's what we chose and moved on.
What about operating in a regulated industry?
Okay. Fortunately, so far, we are not a regulated company, but your question is absolutely valid. Operating in a regulated industry makes it that much more difficult compared to a startup that is in an unhindered space, right? Because all your customers are regulated. So especially, I mean, even before the DPDP Act, they were all very clear that whichever partner or vendor they're working with, they are subject to the same kind of rigor and compliance that they are subject to do by the RBI or the other regulators, right? So in a way, it helped us because when we started with personal finance, I was handling the most sensitive data of my customers. So we put in enough technology systems process in place to ensure that we comply. I mean, not even comply. We kind of over comply with every possible privacy and security thing, right? And when we started working with all these banks and BFCs and fintechs, it was very clear to us that we have to be subjected to every possible regulatory compliance. So in fact, today I go through at least 150 audits every year. These are audits on behalf of my customers. These are not just at the time of onboarding when I sign up a customer. This is ongoing audits that they have to comply with. And these are like a couple of days in each case. Yes, it is. It sucks a lot of time and effort on our side, but it gives me the comfort that there is a third party like a PwC, McKinsey coming and auditing and ensuring and certifying that these guys know what they are doing and it is safe. That gives me huge peace of mind, and it is important to do that. So while yes, it is challenging working with the regulatory body entities, at the same time, that is also a moat. It creates a moat for us.
Okay. You talked about access to deep pockets. But when you are talking about a B2B kind of a sale, there is always a lag or a lot of time it takes. It's not a
Yes. Yes.
decision
True.
on the moment and all that.
Right.
So while doing that, and B2B probably also has a lot of these integration expectations and then upstream, downstream, which move at different paces. So
Absolutely.
as a product or a platform-based solution company, what was your thought or approach towards managing all these things and still kind of, make progress?
Excellent set of questions. You compress a lot of this in one question. It's not easy. So first of all, being a product company itself is a huge challenge, as you know, right? The lag from when your revenue starts kicking in, if at all it kicks in, because you need to invest a lot of money before you even see the first rupee coming through that product. That itself is the first challenge. Second is, as you said earlier, the regulated environment. You are going because your customers, potential customers, prospects are all in the regulated space. So which means it takes its own time because they are all very scared of working with an unknown small company because they are answerable to the regulators.
Yeah.
So their thing is, I'm comfortable working with a large entity, but you guys are unknown. I don't even know whether you will exist next year. Right. That is a second challenge. How do you convince a large regulated entity that you are a trustworthy partner that they can work with and hand over their crown jewels, data and other things to you? Right. That's the second challenge. Third, of course, is the funding. Like in order to survive all this, because each one of this takes time, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is, how do you create that cash flow? And as I said, we did not want to dilute our focus of moving away from product and getting into either services or consulting or all of that, because we felt that will dilute our thing of being a true product company. Because in Aztec, we tried doing that and we realized it is like riding multiple ponies at the same time. We cannot be doing all of that at once. So we said we have to be only product focused. We don't want to generate cash flow just to satisfy that product development. And so that was the third challenge, right? So the first challenge itself was, how do you establish the market for it? As I said, I wanted to be in a category creating product space, not in a product space that has already been demonstrated by other people. I want to be the 15th player in the market because there is money to be made. We said we want to be creating a category. We want to be an innovator. We want to get into a space where we create that. So which means there is huge amount of evangelization that is required. Because when I go and talk to a potential prospect, they don't even know it is a pain point in many cases. I had to explain to them 2 years down the road, you will see this as a pain point. So you better start using my product. And in many cases, that did not work initially, especially we were a small company, right? So I keep telling, again, my internal teams, if I had to do an elevator pitch at that point in time, that elevator had to be an elevator for a World Trade Center. Because I had to explain what that product is, what is the pain point, why they should start using it. So it's not like something I could say, oh, I am like this company, so I am faster, cheaper, better. It is more like, oh, this is the concept, this is what we are building, this is why it is required. So that whole thing itself took some time to establish that it is a viable product, that we are for real and we are not smoking something, right? Then the thing is, how do you convince the customer that, yes, this is an interesting product, but does this make sense, business sense for me? Is it even important for me, right? Most of them in the initial days used to say, oh, this looks nice. This is a great marketing pitch, but it's not a pain point for me. Nice knowing you, but get lost. Okay, that was the kind of feedback. And then comes the adoption, or at least the initial adopters, right? In our case, as a small company, we could not have changed the way financial services worked in India. I mean, we were too small. Fortunately, there were global factors. Positive thing happened for us. Fintech became a big buzzword globally. All the large financial institutions realized they have to work with them. Second thing was digital transformation was a big buzzword that all the McKinsey's, Bains of the world said. So every bank here wanted to have a checkbox saying digital transformation, whether they believed it or not. And third thing was in the Indian context, as you know, we were generating large amount of digital data, starting with the Jam Trinity and other kinds of data. So there was a huge push and we were leveraging a lot of digital data. So we said we have this platform that has the ability to suck any data. So I will combine all these alternate sources of data with the bureau that is existing in this country. And together I will do credit decisioning in real time. And to your point of integration and all that, so what we said was, I don't want to change the way you work. You continue to work exactly the way you work. The same spreadsheet that your credit managers are using and all that. I will generate all the data. I will kind of send it to you in the form that you want. Only difference is today you take 3 weeks, 4 weeks to generate that data, do that analysis. I will give it to you in 3 seconds. You don't need to change anything. And it is OpEx. So it is SaaS based. So you don't need to invest money in me to figure out whether I work or not. So you don't even spend any money. You pay as you go. So as a result, there were no significant investment from their side other than some time effort initially they had to do. And then they did not have to change the way they work. So as a result, after they convinced themselves that it is something worthwhile exploring, it was an easy decision for them. We did not have to spend a lot of time in integration and all that stuff initially.
Okay. So this is actually all nicely fitting in. But another thing that you mentioned about building for the world, how does that change, or are there any new dimensions you need to consider when you're architecting something that is kind of flexible?
Absolutely. I mean, more than architecting, I would say, say India, the advantage of working in India is, yes, the unit economics is terrible. You don't get paid much here. But the complexity that you deal with, the scale that you deal with, the heterogeneity that you deal with, whether it is languages or the different kind of requirements, it's phenomenal. So the moment you make something work in India at that scale, it's very easy to replicate it. I mean, for now, I'm not addressing US because we are not in that market. I'm talking about the space that we are in, which is Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa. For each one of this market, if I'm handling the scale of India and the complexity, it'll easily work. So from a product, this thing, that's not an issue. So the issue is one of, is there a product fitment? Does that market require a similar product? Right? Initially, when we went to those markets, like any other Indian company, we said we will look at proximity. So Southeast Asia and Middle East was natural. A couple of reasons for that. One is, I mean, as a startup, I did not have money. So I said I can save 2 nights of hotel stay and I just take 2 nights of flight. So take an overnight flight, go sell, come back with the next flight. So I could save that. But more importantly, the decision makers in these geographies are expats from the likes of HDFC, ICICI, and SBI and all that. So when I go and pitch to them saying I'm already working with these banks, then that gives me instant credibility instead of trying to establish that we are. But my fear when I tried getting into that market from India was, I thought these are all kind of within code developed markets. At least that's the impression all of us have when we see these glitz of all this flashy buildings and roads and other infrastructure. But when we went to that market, we realized those financial services space are at least close to a decade behind India from a maturity, which is both good and bad. Good because we were the early movers. There is not much of a competition. Bad because we were exactly in the same situation in those geographies that we were in India when we started. Trying to evangelize, I mean, we had to tell all the way from why cloud is important, why SaaS is important. From that point, we had to start. So which meant 2-3 years of initial evangelization phase. But rest of it, once we crossed that hump, that was a great space to be in because we were the early movers. So my message to my team at that time was, in all these markets, let's get into more of a turf grabbing mentality. Like, let us be a mile wide and maybe an inch deep. Let's grab all the logos. And once they start realizing that this is important for them to move forward, at that time, we will do a mile deep and a mile wide because we would have grabbed all those logos. So it took 2 to 3 years for us. Fortunately, by that time, we had generated enough revenue in India and profitable that capital was not a constraint. And my investors also said, we will back you. So that's not an issue. But once we established that, now we are at a stage where these markets are growing real fast. I mean, much faster than India because of our lower base. And their unit economics is fabulous, at least 5 to 7x of what I get in India. But the challenges are each geography, each country is a different regulatory compliance thing. So I have to ensure that I have to comply with all of those. Language is an issue. Culture is an issue, the lingo. So all the IITN, L10N, all that has to be complied with. But the moment you do it for 1 or 2 countries, your product itself is architected in such a way that moving to another. I mean, today I work in KSA, Saudi Arabia. So right to left, Arabic, I mean, fine, it's not a big deal. We handle that.
Yeah, see, since you mentioned languages, culture, and so on, and you also mentioned there are some expats who kind of were able to appreciate what you're doing here. But when they say that selling is always relationship based, particularly for the B2B kind of thing. So is it possible to enter all these markets operating entirely from remote, or do you need some local connects, local influencers, and so on?
Absolutely. I mean, local connects are important, not just for opening doors. See, customer is going to trust you or the entity if they know that there is a neck to catch at the time of despair.
Okay.
Suppose you are sitting in Bangalore or Mumbai and a customer is in Saudi Arabia or Kenya, that's not going to give them comfort. So it is absolutely important to have a local entity. At the same time, all of us realize that if I want to work in 18 countries, I cannot open 18 offices. The cost of doing business is going to go through the roof. So the model that we adopted was, again, I'm not saying it will work for everyone, and it may be different for others. What we adopted was we used to do the selling from Bangalore only, overnight, take an overnight flight, go sell, all that, have that initial relationship. But we established what we call as a Perfios Network Partner, PNP. So in every country where we operate, we work with a local entity. Not necessarily for giving us any great insights or whatever, but essentially to give the comfort to my customer that there is a local entity in the time zone, maybe a few minutes drive from their office or whatever it is, that you can get hold of in case of problems. Right? They may. In some cases, they helped open the doors. In some cases, they even gave us some local insights and all that stuff to build the product or customize the product. But to a large extent, giving comfort to the customer that there is a local entity. So we used to work with this PNPs. And once we reached certain scale in each one of this country, then we converted them to our own office. So we have offices in multiple countries now, which is our own office, and we recruit locally, all of that stuff. But till that point in time, we definitely work with a local partner. That gives comfort to my customers or prospects.
One of the other things that I've seen teams doing and then kind of getting into a mess at times is about managing their code base. Now, probably shifting more towards internally. When you have these different variations, flavors, either geographic or because of regulatory reasons and so on. So what has been your approach towards managing your code?
Fortunately, so far, what we have done is everything is done from Bangalore, my core engineering. We have the customer success team or sales team and all of that, which is individual country based. So to that extent, it is largely a single code base with certain branches, or it's the same team that is handling it. There'll be some customizations. Increasingly, it is becoming more and more of configuration. But since it is a product company from day one, the mindset is whatever we do. I mean, as we work with more and more customers, yes, I will come across some customization, some new features, new requirements. But the goal is, can I abstract it and do it in such a way that I can promote it as a product in the next version or a feature of that core product? That's how it has been always done. So as a result, yes, there'll still be certain customization unique to a specific customer, but since it is the same team that is handling it over a period of time, managing that has not been too much of a problem. That is one. Second thing is, being a SaaS, that is what has given us the ability to scale up. Because if we had done all of this in a kind of a on-prem mode, it would have been a nightmarish experience. Exactly some of the problems you mentioned. Because imagine having, I have about 200 to 250 customers, right? Imagine having 200 versions that has been deployed on-prem, and if I have to do a bug fix, yes, there are tools available, but even then it is going to be a challenge. Whereas today it is largely a SaaS business. So I have a single code base that is running, and which I kind of go on to hot fixes. I mean, multiple hot fixes on a daily basis happens to this code base, which my customer doesn't even know that it is all happening. And then on top of it, it is the same engineering team sitting in Bangalore that is doing all this work with the product mindset. So to that extent, they also don't branch too many things. It's all in the core product.
Wonderful. The other thing is, when you are again building for the world, and well, the code base is all managed. What about the support side?
So initially, like any other startup, I had everything in India because cost and other things. But as I said, in the case of PNP partners, that gives comfort to the customer definitely expects a local presence. So as we expanded and as we scaled up, we realized it's important to have a customer success team that is associated with each geography. Because one, the local language support. I mean, not in the code base, just talking to them. Suppose I'm in Indonesia. The customer would like to talk to someone who understands Bhaja, who talks to them in that local language, or in Saudi Arabia in Arabic, right? So it's important to have that when you reach some scale, especially with larger customers. Because in those geographies, what happens is your competition is some local company. And naturally, they will gravitate to them because they'll be more comfortable talking about the same thing. Culturally, they are aligned, all of that stuff. So at least to bridge those gaps, it's important to have a local customer support, even if they are sitting in Bangalore. But to the extent possible, for larger geographies, we do have local CST team now, customer success team.
As I mentioned earlier, we'll go back to the influence of AI. In your industry, is this where in the hype cycle does that play now?
See, fortunately, from day one, our primary difference, we call ourselves a data company. So I'm about 15 years plus. It's not a startup by any stretch of imagination. But our core thing from day one has been huge amount of data that we have access to, anonymized data or whatever it is, so that we were building models. Like it was a traditional ML-based thing. So when I have a huge amount of data, we used to process it. So when I get a new bank statement or a new kind of thing for credit decisioning, I used to compare it with the model that I've built, both from an analysis point of view and for fraud. In fact, we were doing fraud analytics from day one, saying I not only process it, I will tell you whether it's a fraud or not. And a lot of it is based on the ML-based model. It was not a rule-based engine, right? So to a large extent, we were a data company that is handling huge amount of data based on what is today called as traditional ML. Okay, at that time it was a cutting-edge work because it was not a rule-based engine, right? Now, as a result, in our DNA, that is how we operate. That the more data, in fact, a lot of my acquisitions that I've done is also with the assumption that they provide more data to us, more varied data to us that will improve my model so that I can be far better than anyone out there in the market. So we are a data company and then we build models on it. Now, with all this Gen AI stuff, what has happened is, while we continue on all of that stuff, some of the assumptions we made about generating all this model is getting compressed now. I'm able to do it far better. But one of the things we talked about regulated industry is now actually coming to our help. Because most of these industries, they don't want to put their data into OpenAI or Google, right, or Anthropic. It has to be not LLM, it has to be SLM. It has to be using their local enterprise data, combine all of that with whatever global knowledge that we have and provide the insights. So to that extent, what happens is like we have this huge amount of our own proprietary data, which is not available in OpenAI or some other environment. So we are able to leverage that proprietary data that we have, combine it with the enterprise data that the banks have, together able to leverage all this new language models and the tools that are there, and then provide the insights to my bank. Because the banks don't want this to be published to the world, right? They don't want to share this. So to a large extent, we are leveraging all of that, but in our own context, and that is actually helping us. And of course, the other Gen AI aspect, all that, like any other company, I'm using it for my internal productivity gain and improvement and all that.
Yeah, this is actually turning out to be a masterclass in entrepreneurship, touching so many different dimensions. So one thing you mentioned a couple of times that at heart, you're still an engineer and you want to create things and so on, but you're so comfortable and fluent with all the other terminologies. You're talking about market cap, about cash flow, about burn, about investments and all that. So what would be your tips for wannabe entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs just starting? How can they get comfortable with all these different dimensions that are needed to run an organization?
Sure. So the first thing is, as I mentioned earlier, it has to be a bigger objective than just making money. Money cannot be the motivator to do something new. It has to be a larger objective, whether it is a social objective or whether it is a technology objective or whether it is creating a new category of a product or a solution. So it has to be a much larger objective than just making money. Is just a byproduct. It can be a byproduct. But if that is the primary core, I don't think it will take you too far because there'll be so much of struggle in your journey that other people will leave because you won't see the money in such a short time, right? So one, it has to be a larger objective based on your background. You can choose that objective, right? Second thing is based on my experience, raising money should be your last activity because what I feel is unless it's absolutely required, you should not raise money. Because the moment you have money, there will be pressure on you to spend that money. So what happens then is you spend the money in the most suboptimal way. Whereas if you lack resources and you are working in a very constrained mode, you will be innovative. You will figure out ways to somehow get over those constraints. Whereas the moment you have 10 million, 20 million with you, you will find ways to spend that money rather than being innovative. So to a large extent, I would think, again, people may not agree with me, but I would think at least till you get a market fit and there is a validation of your ideas and some customers are willing to pay for it, I don't think it's worthwhile to raise large amount of money. Yes, I agree. When you have found that market fit and you need to scale up, quickly get to the market and all, that's the time to accelerate your fundraising and raise as much money as possible. But till that point in time, I don't think it's worth raising large amount of money, especially when you're an AI kind of a company today with all this hype. You may be able to raise a lot of money, but that will force you to spend money in a suboptimal way. That is the second thing. And third thing is, as I said earlier, team is absolutely important. You may think that you are a great guy, you will be able to do a lot of things. Beyond a point, you cannot scale. And it is absolutely important. I mean, based on at least in my experience, it's important to have a good co-founder that you can trust and work with it. Because the reason is you go through so much of ups and downs on a given day. I mean, when I log in, first thing I may find that a customer is saying, I'm God's gift to humankind. The next mail may be another customer saying, I must come off the earth, right? So you go through this ups and downs on a given day. And if you don't have a co-founder, it is very tough to ride that emotional roller coaster. Whereas if you have a co-founder, hopefully both of you are not in the trough at the same time. One will be at a crest and you are at the trough and you can balance out. So it's important to have that, at least in my experience. And second thing is a team. It's very, very important to have that team that trusts you and work together, having the same shared vision and the goals and the objectives.
That's a nice segue into another question that kind of came up as we were talking. Is with so much of dynamism outside and all these changes, and you also talked about the importance of the co-founder and so on. If you don't mind sharing any personal practices that help you stay grounded.
Actually, that's a very, very important question. In fact, I would say that is number 0 in the entrepreneurship, which is the value system. See, what I think has helped me in my earlier company as well as here is that culture and the value system. People don't, at least the youngsters don't appreciate the value of culture and value system. They ask me, what is culture? Yogurt also has culture, right? See, by culture, what I mean is things like integrity and all, we all assume. I mean, there is no financial thing and all that. But the moment you talk to, let's say, a potential investor or a potential customer, right? When they know that you are absolutely well-governed company, you don't cut corners. You say what it is. I mean, you are not trying to buffer up things. You are not trying to cut corners, all that, right? The moment they realize that you are a well-governed company, that itself gives you huge, huge advantage. Because an investor doesn't mind investing in a company that is absolutely well-governed, even if it has some shortcomings, because they know things like that can be easily filled in. But if your value system itself is suspect, then they hesitate. So first is governance, like the value system has to be there. Second is the open culture. We continue to, I mean, we are a reasonably large company, about 700, 1,800 people. We continue to be completely open. There is no hierarchy. Anyone can come and talk to anyone. As long as it is meaningful inputs, criticism, all that stuff, anyone can go and raise that issue with anyone, right? Unless you have that open culture, it is not possible to move up. Third thing is, in our case, innovation is a key culture aspect for me. Unless I innovate, I die. I keep telling them. I mean, some of the folks would have read about Innovator's Dilemma, this book. So I keep telling them, if you don't continue to innovate, you will become a case study in that book. And I don't want to be a case study in that book, right? So that culture of innovation has to be built in. It cannot be driven only by the CEO or R&D team or ivory tower team. It has to be at every level, from the fresh employee to the CEO level, right? So all this cultural aspect become absolutely important. And that's the only way the organization, the entrepreneurship can scale up. It's not possible otherwise. Because having this bright individuals, fantastic engineers, all of that stuff, you can get it in the market. But some of these things have to be inbuilt. And you cannot retrofit into an organization. A bad organization will become worse. It cannot become good.
Yeah, my question is also about anything that has helped you personally.
Right. So all this I've been practicing. And the only thing I keep telling my people is unless you also practice it and make it an organization-wide thing, we as an organization cannot scale up. So in fact, when people ask me what keeps you awake in the night, unfortunately, a lot of people ask that question. I said two things. One is data, which is more of a technology thing because we handle most of the sensitive data in the country. And we are only one leak away from a disaster. So I say that is something that keeps me awake at the night. But more importantly, I say culture. Because if I don't continue to have this kind of an open culture, innovation culture, value system, governance, all of that stuff, this will just drag the company down. And this is what, and for that to happen, I need to practice it. I have to show that I follow exactly all those value systems because I cannot be just preaching and say, all of you practice, but I will continue to be the boss. I cannot be that.
So,
and it's difficult to say like on a daily basis whether there are instances like this, but this is more like a culmination of what has been done over the last 15, 20 years that has helped the organization, and this has to continue.
So on that note, thanks a lot, Govi, for sharing and compressing so many of your experiences into what appears to be fairly simple to understand. But I'm sure there are a lot of effort required to actually internalize and follow this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time. It's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People Stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.